I am a doll created by you humans. Would you ever think to love me? Of course, I do love you. Isn't that how you've made me?
The plain doll of the hunter's dream, its true nature unknown, but forever serving the dream's caretaker, who had crafted the doll in the image of a woman long gone and forgotten to all but him. Crafted out of obsession for this woman that admired him but was forever unaware of his feelings. In this reflected obsession that is the plain doll, we can see the shadows of the past. This is the story of these shadows. Gehrman the first hunter, Lady Maria his first apprentice, and the legacy of their hunt, built upon their sins, misery, and love. Despite the legacy of the hunt that would forever bond these two people, very little would otherwise connect these two before the hunt, as they couldn't have come from more different circles of life. For while Gehrman likely came from a poor lower class, Lady Maria was a woman from the noble blood of Cainhurst, with a distant relation to the Queen herself. The nobles of Cainhurst and their queen seemed to possess the ability to manipulate blood, perhaps relating them to Yharnam, the Pthumerian queen, the monarch of an ancient powerful race who also possessed similar abilities. Regardless, the Cainhurst nobles and their queen were long-time imbibers of blood, and also no strangers to the sanguine plague that would later affect Yharnam. Whenever beasts would emerge, their nobles would send their servants, disguised as knights for appearance's sake, to discreetly dispose of these beasts. For Cainhurst, blood was in the center of their culture and mentality. The Cainhurst way was defined by a mix of nostalgia and bombast, as the knights and royal guards were fond of using blood blades. Blades that grew powerful upon imbibing them with blood at the expense of their essence, and would leave behind bloody corpses of the beasts they slayed, convinced that they left behind decadent art. But it was in this regard that Maria deviated from the rest of her fellow nobles, for she frowned upon the use of blood blades. Instead, she used the rakuyo, a sword originating from the same foreign country as the chikage, but demanded great dexterity rather than blood. Despite having likely grown up in the Cainhurst culture, surrounded by its mentality and ways, and even possessing the same honed ability to control her blood, Lady Maria did not reflect their ways. This disdain of blood blades would make her an outsider within a society of elitist outsiders. For when one is standing alone with an opposing conviction, isolation quickly becomes an old friend. This may be the reason why she found such a great admiration, perhaps even adoration, for Gehrman, the first hunter, as he would take her into his care and validate her convictions. Of course, it would seem unlikely that a man with nothing to his name would hold any significant role in her life, but like all sacred things in Yharnam, Gehrman's role in Maria's life began at Byrgenwerth.
Byrgenwerth is an old place of learning, and the tomb of the gods, carved out below Yharnam, should be familiar to every hunter. Well, once a group of young Byrgenwerth scholars discovered a holy medium deep within the tomb. In this sense, everything sacred in Yharnam can be traced back to Byrgenwerth.
Whilst Lady Maria was growing up in Cainhurst, Gehrman's life is a mystery beyond his connection to Byrgenwerth and two scholars of this institute, Master Willem and Lawrence. Master Willem, officially known as Provost Willem, was the head of Byrgenwerth, while Lawrence was one of the many scholars who came to learn history and archaeology. Here, the scholars reflected upon the ancient Pthumerians who preceded humanity, but they also lived alongside the Great Ones, mysterious and powerful beings connected to the Eldritch truth until the Great Ones ascended to a higher plane of thought. Though the Pthumerians were left behind, their worship of the Great Ones had allowed them to unlock the wisdom of this Eldritch truth. Intrigued by this race, Master Willem, Lawrence, and the other scholars of Byrgenwerth searched the tombs of the gods for the secrets of the Great Ones. However, as there were still remnants of the ancient race in the tombs, it made the research a dangerous task. This is likely where Gehrman's role at Byrgenwerth became obvious, for it was clear that Gehrman, while perhaps not a scholar, was subservient to Master Willem. But Gehrman was only the first, for he would later take on several apprentices, all of them supported by Gehrman's workshop.
This was once a safe haven for hunters, a workshop where hunters used blood to enhance their weapons and flesh. We don't have as many tools as we once did, but you're welcome to use whatever you find.
Through this workshop, Gehrman established the hunters, who would come to imitate his modus operandi, from his adjusted everyday clothing that encouraged the hunters' emphasis on speed, to the burial blade, a masterpiece of craftsmanship that would inspire an entire array of weapons crafted in the workshop. Gehrman taught his craft to these hunters, who in turn formed Gehrman's legacy, marked by the hunt and the badges they left behind.
Have respect for the beast hunter Gehrman's wishes. Take the relics in this room as your parting prize. Let them be your strength, and return to your hunt, good hunter.
This is where the first hunter and a lady of Cainhurst would cross paths. Lady Maria became one of Gehrman's first apprentices, and would have great admiration for the first hunter. For her was a skilled warrior who was the exact opposite of everything she had been taught at Cainhurst. Instead of blood blades, he used a trick weapon made from siderite. Instead of fancy armor, he used self-adjusted everyday clothing. And while Cainhurst Knight saw the hunt as bombastic posturing, Gehrman saw it as a dirge of farewell, wishing only that his prey rest in peace. In other words, Gehrman's strength as a hunter was likely a confirmation of Maria's ideals that separated her from the rest of Cainhurst nobility. Thus, it is not surprising that Maria had great admiration for Gehrman, for when isolation is an old friend, it's a comfort to have your convictions proven, even if these convictions isolated you in the first place. Thus, she would learn from Gehrman, and under his tutelage, Maria learned the art of quickening, a particular talent amongst the first hunters. However, while Maria had developed an admiration for Gehrman, Gehrman was also developing a curious mania for Maria. While it is not surprising that Gehrman would develop feelings for this younger, skilled, and beautiful warrior of noble heritage who greatly admired him, it is curious that Maria was never made aware of Gehrman's obsession. It seems that Gehrman was incapable of confessing his feelings to Maria. Instead, he would turn to literary guides on how to seduce women. This behavior, in correlation with his reclusive nature and the hunter's dream, suggests that in contrast to his confidence as a warrior and craftsman, Gehrman is in fact shy and emotionally withdrawn.
He was a hunter long, long ago, but now serves only to advise them. He is obscure, unseen in the dreaming world. Still, he stays here, in this dream. Such is his purpose.
When crafting weapons or hunting beasts, there is little need for social interaction or emotional reciprocity. But confessing feelings is a situation of emotional vulnerability, with the risk of rejection at stake. Instead of confessing, Gehrman was controlled by his anxiety and kept his feelings to himself, likely rationalizing that she was a noble of Cainhurst while he was a man of no background. Thus, Gehrman would instead let his feeling be twisted into an obsession, remaining unaware if Lady Maria reciprocated his feelings or not, and sadly, due to upcoming events, he would never find out. As the Byrgenwerth scholars explored the old labyrinths, they found many relics and rituals left by the ancient race, but more importantly, they found the old blood, a powerful substance that could cure any illness through a simple transfusion. With this in hand, the scholars' dream of evolving humanity could now become a reality. However, the old blood also split the ranks of the Byrgenwerth scholars. For while many scholars like Lawrence wished to use the old blood, Master Willem was against its use, as he saw the danger of using the old blood. He argued that they should fear the old blood, turning it into an adage, despite the disagreement of the other scholars. Master Willem realized that the humans were thinking on the basest of planes and needed to line their brains with eyes, the insight into the eldritch truth, in order to elevate their thoughts. They needed another way to achieve evolution aside from the old blood. Thus, it must have been quite the fortune when Byrgenwerth learned of the secret of the fishing hamlet.
Byrgenwerth, blasphemous murderers, blood-crazed fiends, atonement for the wretches, by the wrath of Mother Goss. Mercy for the poor wizened child. Mercy.
The fishing hamlet, a quaint little fishing village that likely would have passed through history without leaving a mark, if not for the fact that the corpse of the Great One Cross washed up on the coast, its insides teeming with tiny parasites, unlike any found in humans. The corpse's mere presence altered the village and its inhabitants. The hamlet decayed from the overflowing water, with coral sprouting everywhere, and its inhabitants were twisted into beings resembling slugs and fishes who harvested the parasites found inside of Kos. Despite this, the inhabitants worshipped the Great One, affectionately referring to her as Mother Kos. Perhaps because they were reborn through her influence, or because of the madness of the eldritch truth, or because she had something else than parasites growing inside of her, more specifically, an unborn Great One. But what happened next happened because of Byrgenwerth. After all, here was a village affected by the eldritch truth, its inhabitants altered by the mere presence of a Great One's corpse, not unlike the Pthumerians. So to Byrgenwerth, the secrets must have beckoned so sweetly. Therefore, under Master Willem's orders, Gehrman, Maria, and the hunters serving Byrgenwerth went to the fishing hamlet to recover these secrets. And thusly, the fishing hamlet was violated, ransacked of all its secrets, its villagers slaughtered and desecrated as their skulls were forced open in search for eyes. Finally, the corpse of the Great One Kos was found and likewise violated to satisfy the scholars' wild curiosity as they took the unborn and unnamed Great One from Mother Kos' womb, and very likely the umbilical cord as well. This umbilical cord was also known as Cord of the Eye, and every infant Great One had this precursor to the umbilical cord. Master Willem sought this cord, for he believed that it could be used to line their brains with eyes and elevate himself in order to match the greatness of the Great Ones. However, even with this great relic, it would not stop the rift growing amongst the Byrgenwerth scholars. For while Willem was steadfast in his conviction, his student Lawrence was equally headstrong. Thus, Lawrence would abandon Willem and founded the Healing Church, a society built upon the foundation of the old blood and blood healing. However, Lawrence was not the only one who betrayed Willem.
Once, a scholar betrayed his fellows at Byrgenwerth and brought forbidden blood back with him to Cainhurst Castle. It was there that the first of the inhuman vile bloods was born.
As the Cainhurst nobles became the so-called vile bloods, the Queen also employed her blood hunters to hunt not beasts, but other hunters, in order to collect blood dregs, for she wished to have a child of blood, something that only those slated to carry them were allowed. Thus, it was not a surprise that Cainhurst and the Healing Church would become opposing forces, resulting in the vile bloods being massacred by the executioners. Aside from the immortal Queen, all the nobles of Cainhurst were murdered, much to the approval of the Healing Church, as the church would use the executioner's garbs as a basis for all their attire. But this raises a question. Was this murder only to purge those imbibing the forbidden blood, or was the church a growing theocratic power trying to remove the monarchy of Queen Annalise, thereby securing their political power over Yharnam? If so, did they have any plans for Lady Maria, the last Lady of Cainhurst and likely the heir of Cainhurst's throne? Would they now see Lady Maria as a benefit to the church, or a detriment? Regardless, Maria would never come to claim any throne or subjects, for the events of the fishing hamlet would scar her and Gehrman deeply, leaving her severely traumatized, to the point that she would cast her Kreuger into the dark well of the fishing hamlet, no longer able to stomach its presence. Post-traumatic stress disorder is at heart the development of certain characteristic symptoms following exposure to one or more traumatic events. Though the severity of symptoms varies from person to person, Maria's actions certainly suggest PTSD. For a strong indicator of PTSD is the avoidance of external reminders of the trauma, whether people, places, or objects. And by discarding her sword, originally a source of pride, but now of disgust, Lady Maria was trying to avoid remembering the actions she committed with this weapon. The hunt no longer filled her with pride, but with anxiety. While Gehrman continued to hunt, Lady Maria was given a new purpose by the healing church. She became the caretaker of the patients of the research hall, the church's experiments to communicate with the Great Ones. Considering that the church likely used whatever they found in the fishing hamlet for these experiments, I wonder if Maria was hoping for something good to come out of it, to justify the travesty she committed. However, experiments are always at risk of failure, and soon these failures filled the research hall, in pain and without relief, despite Maria's best attempts.
Lady Maria, please, take my hand. Please, help me. Don't let me drown.
For her efforts, Maria would be regarded as a motherly figure due to the kindness and comfort she offered her patients. She even let those with the most potential plant lumen flowers, believing the scent would bring them comfort in their agony. But all her efforts were for naught, and the experiments were ultimately considered failures. And when nothing good would come from these experiments, what was the point?
Lady Maria, save me, please. I don't hear anything. I have failed. Please, Lady Maria.
After these failures, Maria locked herself into her astral clock tower, distancing herself from the patients that she had failed. For her PTSD would make these patients become symbolic of her own failures and trauma. Their cries for help, ringing like a beckoning bell, would surely put a strain on Maria's psyche. They were in pain because she, like Byrgenwerth, had been tempted by secrets. She and the scholars had violated humans and gods alike, causing so much pain because of their curiosity. Her curiosity. In the end, she was just like the nobles of Cainhurst, fixated on blood and secrets, no matter the cost. In her guilt and shame, Maria isolated herself, distancing herself from the healing church, once again an outsider within a society of elite outsiders. Only now, Maria had lost everything she held dear. Her noble family was murdered. She failed to bring comfort to her patients, and the experiments failed. Her pride as a hunter, her relation to Gehrman, was forever tainted by the violation she condoned by desecrating their fishing hamlet. There was nothing left. Therefore, when sitting in an ornate chair next to a table with a single cup and a shattered picture frame, Lady Maria slit her own throat.
Only an honest death will cure you now. Liberate you from your wild curiosity.
PTSD is characterized not only by the avoidance of trauma, but also a persistent negative emotional state, feelings of detachment, or self-destructive behavior. Maria's despair, nurtured by her trauma, led to her suicide. And Gehrman, distraught by her death, took her remains and remaining possessions to the workshop. He would take good care of these possessions and buried her bones just outside the workshop to keep her close. However, Gehrman's obsessive love still yearned for Maria, so he crafted a doll in her image, and into this doll he poured his love, his warmth, and his mania for the dead Lady Maria. But sadly, no matter how much care and attention he poured into crafting this doll, no matter his talents of craftsmanship, he could not craft a soul. But perhaps there was a way. For as the beastly scourge spread across Yharnam, hunters became more important than ever. Therefore, Lawrence went to Gehrman, suggesting a temporary plan to fix this, by asking the Great Ones to create the Hunter's Dream, as it could make any hunter connected to the dream and its influence immortal. For the Great Ones are sympathetic in spirit, and often answer when called. At this point, the workshop was being replaced by the healing workshop, and Gehrman had even lost his right leg. Gehrman had nothing to lose and everything to gain, including breathing life into the doll, thereby bringing his beloved Maria back to him. Thus, Gehrman took 1/3 of the umbilical cord they recovered long ago to the workshop and beckoned the moon presence, becoming the caretaker of the Hunter's Dream. But more importantly, the plain doll came to life. Gehrman could finally have Maria back. However, while the doll had her face and her voice, even some quirks of its predecessor, the doll had its own separate soul, its own psyche. It was only a shadow of Maria. His obsessive fantasy would remain just that, a fantasy, which reality could not live up to. Maria had not been revived, and Gehrman was now trapped in the dream. For every Great One loses his child and yearns for a surrogate, and as the dream's caretaker, Gehrman was now the surrogate child of the Moon Presence. However, this new position was causing Gehrman pain, and it seems that he was waiting for Lawrence to set him free, but sadly, Lawrence would fail and become a beast himself, thus leaving Gehrman alone in the dream, his only company being an imitation of his obsession.
Oh, Lawrence, what's taking you so long? I've grown too old for this, of little use now, I'm afraid.
Time passed as the years bled away. Hundreds of new hunters would enter the dream and then wake up, while Gehrman remained the dream's caretaker. But there was another burden on Gehrman's shoulders, the hunter's nightmare, created from the sins of him and Maria. For while the Great Ones are sympathetic in spirit, they also incite curses when angered.
Curse the fiends, their children too, and their children forever true.
And with the desecration of the fishing hamlet and her unborn child, Byrgenwerth had definitely incited the wrath of Mother Cos. As such, the hunter's nightmare was created, cursing the fiends Lady Maria and Gehrman and the hunters they inspired, for they were their symbolic children. They would all suffer the wrath and pain of the villagers, Mother Cos, and her orphan.
Lay the curse of blood upon them, and their children, and their children's children forevermore. Each wretched birth will plunge each child into a lifetime of misery.
I wonder if Gehrman or Lawrence were aware of the hunter's nightmare, and what would await them beyond death, and if that influenced the creation of the hunter's dream. Perhaps it was a way to prevent their fates long enough for Lawrence to stop it, as Gehrman would not want his prey to suffer another nightmare after death.
This is the hunter's nightmare, where hunters end up when drunk with blood. Aimless, wandering hunters slavering like beasts. This is what the poor fools have to look forward to.
Generations of hunters would pass, then we come, seeking pale blood and horrifying answers. We find the hunter's dream, but also the hunter's nightmare. Deep in this nightmare, we approach the secret that fuels the nightmare. But before we can, we encounter the one hiding this secret.
A corpse should be left well alone. Oh, I know very well how the secret beckons so sweetly. Only an honest death will kill you now. Prevent you from your wild curiosity.
By trying to find the truth of the hunter's nightmare, we are forced to kill Maria, for she is protecting the secret of the nightmare. After all, by revealing the secret of the hunter's nightmare, we also reveal Maria's shame, And after decades of the nightmare reminding her of this trauma, her PTSD and ensuing pain and guilt is still strong. She wants to avoid it, and here we come, studying her corpse. She will not let it happen again, no matter what, even going to the point of using the blood arts that she had frowned upon so long ago. But in the end, we kill her and reveal the secret of her shame. But ironically, it is to her relief.
Good hunter, this may sound strange, but have I somehow changed? Moments ago, from some place, perhaps deep within, I sensed a liberation from heavy shackles. Not that I would know. How passing strange.
By killing Maria and revealing the truth, Maria is freed from her burden. The truth of the fishing hamlet, the curse of Mother Cos, is made clear, and she can no longer hide. She is forced to confront and accept her trauma. We have freed her, and by bringing an end to the horror, we may be able to end the suffering. And so, we set the unnamed orphan free, unshackling Gehrman from his torment.
Oh, good hunter, I can hear Gehrman sleeping. On any other night, he'd be restless, but on this night, he sounds so very calm. Perhaps something has eased his suffering.
The curse of the nightmare is broken, and as dawn approaches, we face Gehrman one last time.
Good hunter, you've done well. The night is near its end. Now, I will show you mercy. You will die, forget the dream, and awake under the morning sun.
At this point, Gehrman has more than done his duty and could easily find a new caretaker so he can escape this suffering. And yet, he tries to make us wake up, still clinging to the dream.
Dear, oh dear, what was it? The hunt, the blood, or the horrible dream? Oh, it doesn't matter.
The moment we refuse to be awakened, Gehrman sees this as a hostile response. Perhaps he's just used to a certain way, aware that the nightmare will always cycle, or he just doesn't want to lose the one thing he has left. Though, I doubt Gehrman would ever let go of the dream, for he would never consciously admit to himself that he wanted to leave, despite his subconscious crying out for help.
Oh, Lawrence, Master Willem, somebody help me, please.
He would defend his position in the dream from any opposition, even at the cost of his own life. Perhaps because he still feels bound to his duty, or perhaps it is because the doll is made in Maria's image. You could even argue that the plain doll is the child of Lady Maria and Gehrman. And even if it's just a shadow, she's still Maria to some capacity, and he cannot let go of that.
It always comes down to the hunter's helper to clean up after these sorts of messes. Tonight, Gehrman joins the hunt.
Whether it is for his love or duty, Gehrman's obsession will not let him leave. But that is why we hunt. For a hunter's purpose is to hunt those undone by the blood, and by letting his obsession consume him, Gehrman has become undone. Therefore, we hunt once more, following our curiosity, and freeing Gehrman from his burdening obsession, and ending the hunt created by the mother and father, the first hunters.
The night and the dream were long